Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge, and welcome to my Valentine's week full of book recommendations and talking about romance. So make sure you subscribe and hit that bell if you want to know when other of these videos are coming up. Today we're talking about a wonderful trope in romance called the arranged marriage trope. So first thing that I want to say is I actually have a couple different versions of this and different suggestions like on this list. So in general, there are a couple different kinds of arranged marriages. There is the arranged marriage where like someone else arranges it for you and you don't have a choice in the matter, which is generally we're talking about historicals when that happens, or under duress situations that happen sometimes. And there's also marriage of convenience, where two characters realize it is mutually beneficial for them to be married because of property laws, family inheritance. They both have something the other one wants. Those are different. So I have some of both in here. And I'll kind of mention which is which as I hit them. But I just wanted to say that because there is a difference between an arranged marriage and a marriage of convenience. But in general, especially the list that I consulted, because I was going through to see if there was any I'd read that I didn't remember they were, there's a difference between the two. And it's not always specific to historical romance, but it usually is historical romance that has the arranged marriages, but I do have some options of both. So let's start out with one of those. This is one I read at the beginning of this year, and this is an arranged marriage, an almost forced marriage, basically, and that is A Kingdom of Dreams by Judith McNaught. This one is like romance royalty, basically. This is the first in the Westmoreland saga. This is about a girl named Jennifer and a guy named Royce, and they are from warring families, warring countries. Jennifer is Scottish and her, family and homelands are under threat by the British. And Royce, he gets in trouble for a few things, and Jennifer's in trouble for a few things. And she at one point is actually captured by him and then escapes and then finds out that she has to marry him. And things don't go so well for them for a while. This one was tough to read. This is not a rom-com historical romance that I usually like, but it was good. And it got to me, man, because Jennifer, she is so strong and so brave, and she's just living in a time where nobody gives a crap. She's also very young, and she has been maligned by her older half-brother, who has made her look foolish and almost crazy and made her entire clan hate her. And then she gets married to an Englishman, which just continues to make her not high up in their eyes. And she is just desperate to help her clan and her family, and she would do anything for them, including marry someone who she thinks wants to hurt her. He doesn't want to hurt her. He's angry, but he wouldn't do that. He would threaten it. It's one of those. That happened a lot in historical romances. They would threaten abuse, but this was such a beautiful story. It was painful. It was amazing. The way it ended was, I cried. But she has a kingdom of dreams in mind, and Royce is gonna find a way to give it to her, and that's all I'll say. But it was good. This is a hefty one too, over 400 pages. It's so good. I really need to continue this series, but this was just so heavy it took me a little bit. Next, I have one that is kind of a mix of marriage of convenience / arranged marriage, and that's The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. I also read this last month, and this is about Kai, who has autism, and his mother is trying to find him a wife, and so she goes back to Vietnam and finds Esme, who is a single mother who is down on her luck. She's a hotel maid, and Kai's mother brings her back and asks her to seduce her son and marry him by the end of the summer. And this is powerful. This is beautiful. This shows discrimination and what it's like coming to this country, and it also shows a beautiful relationship blooming. Shows someone who doesn't know that they can love, learning what love is. And although this one is still a choice, about the marriage. Like, the purpose of her getting brought there is to marry Kai. So that's why I included this. I've seen it on a few lists as an arranged marriage as well, but it is still also kind of like a slow burn relationship as well. It's very good. Next, I want to bring up the Remnant Chronicles by Mary Pearson. This one starts off with there's supposed to be an arranged marriage between Leah and the prince of another country, and it's about her running away from that and giving a big old F you to her country and her family, which is honestly a pretty rash decision and not the brightest idea she's ever had, but she's going to take her destiny in her own hands and run away. And the crux of this story, what makes it kind of like a secret, is that the prince that she ditches wants to find out why the heck she ran away. And there's also an assassin being sent by a neighboring country who's supposed to find her and eliminate her so that this marriage can't happen and that there won't be peace between these two countries. And both of those men are sent after her, and it isn't until about 70% into the novel that you find out who is who. So it's really good. Leah is in my top protagonist ever. She is so brave and smart, but she grows into it. She starts as a, like, not rash, but just like trying to buck against society with all her might and fight. And it's so beautiful how she ends up realizing that she's the only one who can save her country. And I love it so much. I love it so much. Next, I want to mention The Wild Heir by Karina Halle, whatever. This is part of the Nordic Royal series, and I love it. That series has an age gap in it. It has enemies to lovers. It has a second chance romance. It's amazing. Well, this one is about one of the princes of the Nordic countries who he's been living a playboy lifestyle, and he has to marry a princess from one of the other countries. And she's only willing to do it if he can prove that he'll be faithful, if he can prove that he'll be a good husband. And so they meet each other knowing that they're supposed to get married soon, but they are building their relationship together. And it's so fun. All of Karina's books are pretty funny. I love the whole series. And I really, really love these two and how they get to know each other. And it's fun. I love the Nordic royals. I love the royalty in the modern setting. And I love that they use these Norwegian countries. And it's a little bit like Princess Diary vibe. Some of them are. And I just love them. They're adorable. Then I'm suggesting The Marriage Contract by Katie Roberts. So this one is one that's a modern day arranged marriage, which so is The Wild Heir, but that one's still kind of like marriage of convenience for them. But this one is, you will marry this person. It just so happens that they do like each other. So this is about two different mob families who are trying to forge an alliance, and so their two oldest children have to get married. And instead of the normal, like, this is an enemies to lovers, these two want to make a good go of it. So even though their families want them to be more suspicious of each other, they actually like start kind of like dating before they have to get married. And they're like, we want this to be successful. We don't want to be fighting against each other. We want to make a good future for both our families. And so it's really sweet because it's not what you're expecting of like the mob kind of situation, but it was really sweet, really cute. I love these two, and I really loved it. And I need to continue this series because there's a huge cliffhanger for the next entry in the series, and at the time, I just didn't want to go that route with it because it had to do with like a kidnapping, but I really want to go back to this family, and so I think I'll do that soon, probably. Then let's talk about Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahoon. This book, I thought that I might like it because it's about this girl who's a witch, and it's set in kind of like a fantasy version of revolutionary Paris. And this girl, she is accused of witchcraft. She is actually a witch, but she is on the run from some other witches who are trying to kill her. And so when she's in a situation where she's offered either marry this witch hunter and live a good life, like live under our eyes, or die, she chooses to marry the witch hunter because she's like, well, now I'm literally living in a church and the witches aren't going to come and get me here. But she is planning to escape as soon as she can. The only thing she didn't count on is the husband she gets is so sexy and amazing. And I loved this book. I cannot wait for the sequel to this because the thing that a lot of people didn't like is how much romance was in it. And that made me very excited because I think that YA often doesn't have as much romance in it as I want. And people said that this should have been considered new adult because there's one semi-graphic sex scene. Maybe I'm desensitized after some of the other books I talked about, but it's just because they use more graphic terms for the body parts. But you've read sex scenes in other YA before. Let's be real. It just usually uses very flowery, vague terms. And in this, they're like, these people are married. They get married like chapter 4 of the book. And it's about this hate to love of this forced marriage and how it ends up being something good later on. And it's also very like sex positive for the girl because she isn't a virgin. That's not the life that she's lived, but her husband is because he's lived a faithful life to the church and he wasn't planning to actually have a wife, even though some of them will take a wife and he gets forced to take a wife, but he was never planning and he actually loved somebody else. And now he's married to this woman who he considers to be evil until he gets to know her. And I really like watching his mind change on things as she slowly opens to it. It has a pretty classic, like when he finds out, the way he reacts to it. But in this case, I knew that was going to happen. Like he was raised one way his whole life. How is he supposed to think about it? But the cliffhanger we got was amazing. His character growth was so cool. I love them so much. This book was actually pretty funny in some places. And I'm very, very excited for the sequel. I think this, as a debut, was so good. And I can't wait for more. And this was a really fun arranged marriage. And then the last one I want to mention is Talon by Carrie Ann Cole. And this is a fun setup. So this is part of like a series that I've read most of them, but I wasn't a fan of all of them. But this one is Talon. His mom is a psychologist and she's doing this experiment where she sets these couples up with each other and they get married and then they're going to live together for like, I think it's 6 months and following like, but it was a compatibility setup. So like she had them answer all of these questions and then she like set them up and she gives them these like different tasks and things to do. And if they stay married for the certain amount of time, then they each get a like payout. And Talon's not doing it for a payout. He's a rock star. He doesn't need that or anything, but she kind of does need the payout as well as she's looking for someone to love. And she's like, I might as well try it. This one is great. It's actually like a slow burn for them getting married in like chapter 3. Because they're didn't like jump into bed with each other right away. And so it's kind of this like slow burn together. And I really, really loved them. And Talon is so sweet. And this was probably my favorite of the series that I read. And I just really, really enjoyed it. It was so good. So anyway, that is my favorite arranged / marriage of convenience books. I hope you'll give them a try. Let me know what your favorite ones are. There are, of course, a ton of historical romances that this works for, but I kind of wanted to mix it up and show you some of the modern ones as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I think I still have 1 or 2 more videos for Valentine's week to go up, so make sure you check those out when you get the chance. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.